Welcome back. If you're just joining us, this is still Rise and Shine, the Monday morning edition, where we talk Nigeria and look into very serious conversations going on around the country, how we can move our country forward collectively by setting the agenda, having the right conversation, asking the right questions to the right people. Joining us this morning to do some of these things is Jide Ojo, who is a columnist with the Punch newspaper and MD CEO of Oja Consults, joining us all the way from Abuja this morning. Good morning, Jide Ojo. Very good to have you on the show this bright Monday morning.
My pleasure. Good morning.
Yes, I'd like to ask, how is Abuja today? You look resplendent in blue.
Abuja is fine. We're waiting patiently for our new ministers, and we hope we will experience good governance.
Exactly. So since you've already taken us there, let's start there this morning. Of course, they are going to be taking their oaths today, and the presidency has said the focus for this cabinet is going to be the economy and also security of the nation at this time. Also, last minute, just yesterday, we saw, the president shaking up the cabinet that he had already put together, reassigning some persons. What would you say might have informed that particular move? And like you were already inciting, what is the hope of the new cabinet?
Well, the new cabinet, the reshufflement of the ministers designate shows lack of proper homework on the part of the presidency. It shows again that if not for constitutional timeline for the formation of the cabinet, we will have maybe experienced a longer delay than we had under Buhari. Because this man promised us that he was going to hit the ground running. If you are supposed to hit the ground running, you should have had some idea of who and who you want to run your government with prior to your own inauguration on May 29. After all, this election was won and lost by 1st of March 2023. Tinubu was already announced president. Even though the inauguration did not come until May 29, as at the time you have been announced as the president ought to have moved into kind of idea talking to APC governors, who and who do you want me to have in my cabinet? I'm not saying he will have to single-handedly appoint everybody in that cabinet. He can't do it because he has to consult with the political party that brought him to power. He has to consult with all the other power brokers within the party structure and outside of the party and those who worked for him. But what I'm saying is that it shows that the president perhaps did not get into governance mode until May 29, and that is disastrous. For me, he has not hit the ground running in any way. Today is the 84th day after inauguration, and yet you are still swapping. Remember, he couldn't even submit a comprehensive list of his ministerial nominee
All at
when he
once.
did. He first sent in 28, and that even can lead to legal tussle because the constitution in section 42A says that both the president and governors are to nominate their cabinet within 60 days of inauguration. So within 60 days, you brought 28 names. And after 60 days, about 70 days or thereabout, you brought additional 19 names. Now, what should have even been the procedure? We thought the delay was as a result of security clearance for those nominees, that the president didn't want to make mistakes. So he possibly, after receiving the nominations from the governors, from the party leaders, sent them to security agencies for screening. Maybe that was the delay. But as we have seen, the security clearance did not come until after the screening at the Senate. Otherwise, why would you have three people who could not scale the security screening. So all said and done, you now change after the first batch of nominee and the second batch of nominee, you still change two people, added and subtracted. Remember, Keyamu was not on the initial two list
Yes.
until when Miriam Sheku was removed, the lady from Kano, and then they replaced her, and then they brought Keyamu. All these are signs that the president was not ready. Then, after they have, how many days now? It's been more than 10 days since these people their nominations were okayed by the Senate. More than 10 days, close to 2 weeks. You receive that list. Now you are inaugurating them today. And yeah, let me warn that there's still a lot of challenges. No matter how optimistic we want to be, look, we are still thinking. I would not be surprised if during the inauguration today there are still some alterations. Oh, you can't go to Ministry of Sport, and you go to Ministry of Space Aeronautics. Why would you not have all of these things in place? You have your secretary to the federal government early enough. You have your the chief of staff early enough. The of service is already in place. So why would you be removing and changing people even with that on the eve of the inauguration? Some of these people may have spent quite a lot of resources trying to research into the ministry they are designated. So that you understand me. For
Absolutely.
instance, what is marine economy? What is green and blue economy? Today we changing the title. It's not supposed to be Ministry of Environment and whatever. Let it just be Ministry. That is supposed to be the role of Ministry of Youth. Youth and sport was to separated them. And now the bigger challenge is this: where is the space for this bloated bureaucracy? Where is the space for them? Where are the office spaces? I live and work in Abuja. If you go the entire federal secretariat is opposite the 3-arm zone. It's in the 3-arm zone where you have the Supreme Court, Court of Appeal, the National Assembly, and then the space is of federal workers. No new structures have been added. Now you have increased financially the number of ministries. Does it make sense? You have Ministry of Tourism, separate from Ministry of Culture and Art, separate from Ministry of Information. That's the boys.
But Jide Ojo,
That's
don't you think that
it does not make sense?
there might be an excuse, because oftentimes when we were all, proofreading the names of these persons that were called up as designates, one question was that we hope that we are going to be able to have, square pegs in square holes to be able to get the job done. I know you've already said it, first of all, reeks of unpreparedness on the part of the presidency to be making these reshuffles. But don't you also think he's aiming at making sure that the right men have the right portfolio so that they can get the jobs done?
I don't think so. Right now, even as you speak, you brought Keyamu to Ministry of Aviation and Aerospace, whatever. What expertise as Keyamu have in aviation?
Innovation, yes.
What expertise as somebody like Musawa, the lawyer from Katsina State, that you have put in charge of arts, entertainment, and whatever? What expertise? But assuming without considering that they can even learn on the job, is it the time to learn on the job? Is it the time? We are talking of economy in doldrums, economy that is comatose. Now, there is not enough office space for these people. There will be no budget for them. There will be no personnel. I don't know whether you're getting my drift.
Yes,
because
I do. And this is also further bloating the cost of governance. This is also further bloating the cost of governance. Yeah.
Look, yesterday, the Punch newspaper published that federal government will be spending 1.37 billion on accommodation alone. Accommodation for these people in 4 years. 1 point something billion. Now, it's not even the problem, the bigger problem is not even whether they are appropriate or they are round peg or a square peg. The point is, this is August ending. Today is 22nd or
Today's
21st
21st.
of August.
Yes.
Now, now there was no budgetary provision for Ministry of Marine and Blue Economy in 2023 budget. I hope you know that. There is no budget for Ministry of Innovation and all of this one that they put Bosun Tijani in charge. There is no provision for that. There is no provision for Ministry of Gas. You understand? What we have provision for is Ministry of Petroleum Resources. So how do you start? You unless you do environment, you cannot fund these newly created ministries. Even Minister of Finance has been balkanized. You have Minister of Finance different from Minister of Budget and National Planning now. How do you share the resources, the budget for Ministry of Budget, Finance and National Planning? So who gets what amount? And there is still some 4 months left in this year. So how do you fund these newly created ministries? That is another huge challenge. But beyond and above that, let me not forget to mention that Keyamo told us that Minister of State is illegal, is unconstitutional. Now we have 13 ministers of state. And when I read the Punch newspaper yesterday that talked about 1.37 billion being spent on accommodation for these people, you find out that what the minister, substantive minister, gets and what the Minister of State gets is not the same. Minister of State gets less than the substantive minister. So let me give you an instance of a looming war. Former governor of Jigawa State, Badaru, is now Minister of Defense. You now brought another former governor, Bello Matawale, as Minister of State for Defense. Both of them are former governors. So you will not say you are the junior, me I'm the senior. Is there supposed to be seniority among the governors? So you find out that there will be Cold War, because even some states that you only appoint their nominee, because all of them are representing their state, according to section 147 sub 3, somebody will now be saying, why is my state giving Minister of State and not substantive minister? And what is even the rationale for Asiwaju to pick 3 nominees from Ogun State and pick 1 from Ekiti?
That brings us to a very strong concern. That brings us to a very strong concern. When we break down this minister designate and when we put substantive ministers and, you know, the ones that are referred to as lower ranks, we see that the Southeast is already crying out that they were not given enough numbers with regards to this ministerial designate. We have some states taking as large as 8 persons, 10 persons and the like, but the Southeast, if my numbers remain correct, took about 5 or just 6 minister designates, and they are already raising eyebrows. Remember that you just incited us about some form of cold wars that may be going on amongst these ministers because of the sharing style that the president has taken. Do you think that this, because we're also looking at how we can cumulatively work towards moving nationhood to a place of success, how is this going to affect us?
Now, the point is, I wait patiently, and God helping me, I will follow through with all the inauguration of the ministers. I want to read the president's speech. There must be KPIs for each of the ministers, key performance indicators. There must be scope of work. There must be proper delineation of responsibilities. Otherwise, did you know what happened between Keyamo and Godswill Akpabio in Ministry of Niger Delta? in 2019. Did you recall?
Oh no.
Kayam was initially posted Minister of Niger Delta, but when it was impossible for him to work with Godswill Akpabio, he
He
has to
leaves the
go
country.
and lobby for him to be redeployed out of Minister of Niger Delta. And they now posted him to Ngige to go and be Minister of State for Labor and Employment. That is the nature and character of what the clashes that will likely happen, where you now bring two elephants to be in the same ministry. So I've given you the example of Ministry of Defense.
Yes.
Two former governors are now being, one is made a junior minister, one is made a senior minister. Yet they are representing their state. So Sanfara will say, oh, so you cheated us by giving us a minister of state. If at all there will be any minister of state, all the 36 states should have substantive ministers. Those ones that you now do on geopolitical basis, you can now give them minister of state. I don't know whether you are making sense.
Absolutely.
But Keyama already has said that it's even illegal. But the major challenge we now have, which I'm emphasizing, is issue of who does what in each of those ministries. For instance, there are two ministers in Ministry of Education. There are two ministers in Ministry of Petroleum Resources. So if you have two ministers in education, is one going to be in charge of primary or secondary education, or one will be in charge of whatever? Maybe you split the the department and agencies, you split it for them. So this is your own areas of jurisdiction, this is your own area. But for people to say there's no junior minister, there are junior ministers, there are senior ministers.
Absolutely.
And there is that ego thing. For instance, all the 9 former governors, 8 of whom are cleared, all the former governors will feel entitled that, we were there, we did. So you are junior to me. I assign you what to do. You will go and represent me at this forum. You will go and do that. And it becomes a boy. But if he meets somebody who is not gentlemanly, that person will revolt and say, look, we are both ministers, even if I'm junior, but I see a junior minister like a deputy director or deputy. You understand? Unless you clearly delineate responsibility
So this
and
brings
give
us to a
each
major
of them.
concern. This brings us to a major concern. Still talking around the former ministers, about 8 of former governors, I beg your pardon, who have now become, ministers in this particular cabinet. Serap has moved to ask the president, Bola Tinubu, to stop their pensions running for them as former state governors and now running into ministers, because all of the major concerns I can see that you have raised this morning is an alarm as to the cost of governance, and we are going to be having duplicated ministerial roles across different sectors, under this administration. Remember that I think we had this conversation with you, and you were even postulating that we should have considered cutting down on the number of ministers we have. Instead, now we have even seen it gone up and agencies have been increased. But the matter of pensions, Sir Jide, we are having some of these people earn pensions as former governors of their state, and some of them have been former sitting, ministers in the former administration and are coming down again. Is there a way to regulate how much we are spending on the heads of these persons?
Quite unfortunately and very dishearteningly, that's why I am not very happy with Tinubu. Tinubu came under the pretext of renewed hope. This is not hope. This is not what Nigerians hoped for. Because even starting with Mr. President himself, he's a former governor of Lagos State. Lagos is one of those states that have life pension for their governors. And I know from what we know of Tinubu, he's a billionaire. Does he need that life pension that he's still collecting? Or I presume he's still collecting. Babatunde Raji Fashola was a former governor. He was a minister for 8 years. I don't know if there is anything in the public domain that says he was not collecting his pension even as he was minister. The same thing with Akwa Ibom. Akwa Ibom has a life pension for governors.
Yeah.
Now, Godswill Akpabio is a former governor. He was a former minister of Niger Delta. He was a former senator, now a president of the Senate, number 3 position. Are we sure that he's not collecting pension in Akwa Ibom, even as he is now a GSM, former governor, former minister, and now senator? So these are the issues that needs accountability and transparency. Can we, the only person that impressed me was former governor of Ogun State, Gbenga Daniel, Otumba Gbenga Daniel. He made public a letter that he wrote to the incumbent governor of Ogun State, saying that, please stop my pension because now I'm a senator of the Federal Republic. Stop my pension for now. And he even quoted the amount he is receiving as pension as a former governor. You understand? That's the only person that I know who has openly said, stop my pension. As Asiwaju done same, as he also instructed Lagos State government to stop his pension, now that he's president. We know that since he left office in 2007, he has not held any political office. Even the so-called leader of APC was just an honorary. He was not a NEC member of APC. He was not an NW member of APC. But now that he's elected president, can we see a letter that has been written to Lagos State government to say, stop my pension because I am now a president of Nigeria? So it is the front toss that the back one used to pace. If the president sets that tone, then definitely we will have had the moral rights to call on those who are former governors, who are now ministers designate, to also ask for their pension to be stopped. But even beyond and above that, there should have been an amendment of the law, whether at the state assembly level, because it's the state assembly that actually promulgated or that passed that law for life pension. I recall that Kwara state government has amended that law and is no longer operational in Kwara state. I also remember that Zamfara state similarly requested that the law be abrogated. So it is within the purview of the state houses of assembly of those 27 or thereabouts where there is life pension for governors to say, even if they want to retain this life pension thing, to say that your pension will stop once you are holding another public office. That's the appropriate thing to do.
That would absolutely
So
be a
the
right
moment
move.
you don't even need to write. Do you get what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
If there is an alteration of the law at the state house of assembly level, like in Akwa Ibom now, Akwa Ibom state lawmakers altered and said that if you are holding any other political office, for the period that you are in that public office, your pension will be stopped. Because it amounts, so how can somebody work for 8 years and receive life pension? And somebody is working 35 years and their pension and gratuities are not being paid. Is that fair? We have in many states people who are 60 years and above, senior citizens, who spent all their youthful years serving the state or the federal government. They are not getting their pension. They are not getting their gratuity. You that was governor for 8 years, you didn't buy a pin in those 8 years. You are being fed. Your Medicare is being taken care of by the state, even as poor as any state may be. Even the best state in Nigeria will take care of their governor if
Okay.
he is sick.
Jide,
His
let's
family
look
is
at
sick.
something
And
that I want us to land on.
Wait, let me land on this.
Okay.
Let me land on this. Governor of Ondo State, Arakunle Akeredolu, has been in Germany for over 2 months now. Is it not at the expense of Ondo State? You understand? So, but he's very comfortable financially. He's a senior advocate, he's a senior lawyer, he's a two-time governor, but the state is taking care of his medical bill. But at the same time now, he will maybe in the next dispensation he becomes a minister. He will still be receiving life pension. It's not fair. We should know what is equity, justice, and fairness. We all know this. And that's why if we want to stop corruption, political leaders need to set the right examples. They have to be exemplary. You cannot be asking people to tighten their belt and you are losing your own. These are people. My governor in Oyo State is a billionaire. In 2019, Engineer Seyi Makinde of Oyo State declared that he's worth about, is it 40 billion naira in asset. That was public declaration. Now, this same man will now be receiving a pension after his 8 years as governor of Oyo State. Does it make sense? Meanwhile, you are struggling to pay minimum wage. This minimum wage, the governor said he doesn't have money to increase the work salary in Oyo State. But they will find money to pay life pension. They will find money to pay big fat allowances for them. So that's what I'm saying. If we don't want revolution, we need to allow the political elite across the political divide needs to have a consultation to say, look, let's set the right example.
Yeah.
Let's work for the people. It does not make sense for us to be living in opulence. Look at it. The National Assembly is marked 70 billion for refurbishment of their own furniture. They said some of the furnitures were carted away by the last administration and none of that. 70 billion was earmarked out of the money for economic relief package. Meanwhile, all federal secretariats where there is epileptic light and water, where there is not enough office space, they don't receive that much in their annual vote.
So we need to land this conversation this morning. Just for this morning, we need to land this conversation. And this is in just about a minute or so. I'd like you to answer this question. Today is the 84th day of President Bola Tinubu as the President of the Federal Republic. Do you think that 100 days in office of this administration will be a landmark? Looking at all the policies that have been reeled out from May 29 till date, will the 100th day mark be a landmark in this country?
It's all in the hands of those who are in the system. Quite unfortunately, that's why I said the ministers are coming in late. Because if you want them to help you achieve anything in 100 days, you cannot bring them barely 16 days to that landmark date of 100 days. But actually did not promise anything in terms of knowledge. It's just the tradition that people track and say in the first 100 days, these are what I've been able to achieve. But we know that even the popularity rating of the president is doing good. You could see a lot of skits being made, that is lambasting and lampooning the president. But not a lot could still be done in those 15, 16 days after inauguration. Don't forget that they are going to go for retreat after the inauguration. So maybe it will be barely 10, 12 days of being in office. But would they have the wherewithal to work? Those ministers, would they have the wherewithal? When we say they must be well resourced, it means in terms of funding, in terms of human capital, they must have staff, they must have office space, they must have all the things that they will need to really hit the ground running. But we wish them well. The most important thing is that we need to oversight them. Media, civil society needs to oversight all of these ministries, departments, and agencies. And let me shock you. We have
so we're absolutely out of time at this point.
Ministries, departments, and agencies.
we're absolutely out of this point, out of time at this point. Would really love to, delve into some of these conversations again. We would definitely have to bring you back. But a big thank you to you, Jide Ojo, for coming on the show this morning. Great wealth of knowledge and exposition on the issues that are bothering us. Like you said, it is our responsibility as the media and civil society organizations to make sure that the least bit we can put the government on track. So a big thank you to you for always being a strong national voice in this country. Thank you for coming on Rise and Shine this morning.
My pleasure. Have a great week, my sister.